Rather a very hot day with the summer just setting in. We're standing right here at the DLF Golf and Country Club in Gurgaon. Hello and welcome to Tea Time today. With me, Chaiti Narula. On the show today, we will discuss the alcohol sector in India. Now, alcohol in India as a market is expected to grow at 10% more than US, Europe and China combined. Rather an exciting journey for alcohol players in this market. On the show today, I've got Amrit Singh of Brown-forman Corporation Limited.
I play golf very early in the morning. At 6:15 is when I tee off. The sun's rising and you're sipping tea on the fourth hole and you thank God for being alive.
In news, Adam Scott wins Masters 2013 in playoff at Augusta. And Rashid Khan bags the PGTI Players Championship at the Classic Golf Resort.
That's a good drive.
Thank you so much, Mr. Singh. Welcome to Tea Time today with me.
Hey, lovely to meet with you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, you played the BMR Invitational Golf Challenge. I couldn't make it for that tournament, but how did that pan out for you?
Well, I mean, it was a real fun tournament, actually. The whole format, the Texas Scramble, where you play with the best ball, makes for a nice casual and fun tournament.
Right.
And this was a new format that the BMR people had introduced this time, and it was a lot of fun. So I think people really enjoyed it.
It's a great tournament, great format, great to play golf with all my friends.
So we've had a tremendous response. It's been great. We have 108 golfers, and Rishi tells me it's a record that we didn't have a single dropout of all our invitees. It's an opportunity for corporates, government and BMR to get together.
BMR has really put on a great show here. This is Scramble Golf, and everyone seems to be having a great time.
Especially when we are in the corporate world, there's so much of pressure, so it's a very nice format.
I must say it's an amazingly well organized. It's a great time we're having on the course.
I'm loving it. I think this is the best time to be on the course.
One for all and all for one. This is a very excellent game.
We have done this golf tournament 3 times previously, and this is our 4th attempt. We've had a great association with DLF, and we hope to continue this golf tournament in the years to come.
You know, a lot of companies have become pessimistic about the Indian market in the alcohol sector. How does Brown-forman Corporation look at alcohol as a sector?
Well, I mean, when we started here about 10, 12 years ago, people used to pity me for the fact that we were selling American whiskey in India. And people said, who's going to drink American whiskey in Scotch country? So we did everything that the Scotch guys didn't do. We promoted our product to young people, because people who hadn't developed a taste profile for Scotch. So we didn't bother with people who had already developed a taste for Scotch type whiskies. We went out and reached out to younger people. We did things like the promotion with Harley Davidson. We promoted rock music, everything that Scotch companies wouldn't do. And today, God's been kind, and we are the second or third largest selling imported whiskey in India, and growing for the last 26 quarters at over 20% per quarter.
Now,
Rock
how
music.
discerning is our Indian customer? Because, do they get the difference between single malt, scotch, whiskey? How discerning are they?
Well, I think
Are they educated enough?
I think, the difference between the Indian consumer and the Chinese consumer is discernment.
Really?
The Indian consumer knows his whiskey. He's passionate about his whiskey. Whereas in China, it was a fad. And therefore, there was cognac, and then they started drinking scotch, and then they're going back to cognac. But in India, in spite of the white spirits industry trying to promote vodkas and gins and white rums, they haven't grown. Whiskey still dominates the spirits market in spite of all the efforts that people make. So people are passionate about their whiskey. They know about their whiskey. They like to talk knowledgeably about their whiskey.
Right.
So they are very discerning, unlike the Chinese consumer.
But in India, there's a social taboo attached to drinking. How are Indian families taking to that?
Well, I think the Indian consumer has kind of moved on. This whole hypocrisy of simple living and high thinking has gone out of the window. Young people are working hard and playing hard.
There's also a lot of Western influence in the country, considering we're becoming
so,
a global
but I think the hypocrisy,
economy.
I think more than that is that the whole hypocrisy has gone out of the window. And people are really working hard. They've got more opportunities than they've ever had in the past. They're making use of those opportunities, and they after a hard day's work, they want to enjoy themselves. And there's none of the guilt that was earlier there. Whenever you enjoyed yourself, you were supposed to feel guilty.
Also, Indians are becoming a little more global now with increasing disposable incomes. They're traveling all over the world.
Sure.
Does that pan out well for alcohol companies?
It certainly does. But I think more than that is the fact that hypocrisy has been taken a backseat. People are working hard, playing hard. They don't feel guilty about enjoying themselves. And that's why the industry continues to grow the way it is, year after year. There are two reasons. One is, of course, social attitudes that have changed.
Right.
And second is the huge number of young people coming into the legal drinking age every year. These two factors together are really fueling growth of our industry.
So, great news that the consumer is becoming more discerning, and of course the market is opening up. They're becoming more global. They're taking on to alcohol well. But do you think the Indian market still has a bit of a problem when it comes to distribution, because it's still controlled right now?
In India, alcohol is a state subject under the constitution.
Absolutely.
And therefore it's like selling to 32 different countries within India, because each state has its own excise tax, its own advertising policy, its own distribution policy. In Delhi, the distribution is private, but the retail stores, the vast majority, 75 to 80%, is owned by the government.
Right.
If you go to the western parts of India, Maharashtra, both distribution and retail is private. So it's different in different states. And of course, where there's the government control, there is more bureaucracy. It's the second largest source of revenue to any state, right? So they don't take it lightly. They take it very seriously, because it funds all the development that's happening in the state.
Also, in terms of taxation, of course, there are a lot of constraints that you face, and your pricing becomes much higher than the incumbents because of the increased taxation you have for imported liquor in this country.
Yeah.
How are you taking to that?
Well, it's amazing, because when we came in, the customs duty was around 700%. It came down to 400 odd percent 4 years ago, and then we signed WTO and we had a sliding scale, and now it's down to 150%. But it's still very high. Even China has an import duty of 10%.
Right.
So it's ridiculous, I think, because what it does is it really encourages people to be dishonest. Because a bottle of Jack Daniels or Johnny Walker Black in the markets for 4,000 rupees for 750 ml because of the huge taxes, and it shouldn't be. So it encourages the black market. It encourages smuggling, and we try to talk to the government and say, you are encouraging people to do illegal things, because if you have a rationalization of duties,
absolutely,
people will buy legally.
Of course, the other conspicuous hurdle that your sector faces is with advertising. The impositions on advertising still continue to remain strong, and you take to surrogate means as advertising. How is that impacting you?
It's difficult. We can only advertise surrogates, or we can advertise events. And again, like I said, it's different in different states. Some states are more pragmatic and they just don't believe in controlling. But seeing that this kind of the advertising that we do that will not have a negative impact and permit it. Other states just believe in clamping down. So we have to deal with different situations in different states. There are two ends. There is the revenue which they need, and they also want to consume. So I would really appreciate it if there was a dialogue between us, the government and the industry, to see what kind of advertising will create the right kind of impact.
Very interesting point. On that note, it's time now for us to take a quick break. On the other side of this break, we will continue the conversation with Mr. Amrit Singh and also talk a little bit more about the dialogue that you want to create between the government and, of course, alcohol companies. Lovely. It's a good one, Amrit.
Hey, thanks. Great.
Thank you. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Tea Time and we're in conversation with Amrit Singh, who is, of course, the Area Director for Brown-Forman Corporation Limited and also the President of Wine and Spirits Association of India. Now, Amrit, we were talking a little earlier about the dialogue that you would like to have with the government as an alcohol company. How far do you think you will be able to have this dialogue?
We've dealt with governments in the past, and it all depends on what kind of person you have on the other side.
No, like I mean for the advertising, like to allow the advertising.
There are all sorts of advertising. There is television advertising, there is local advertising in newspapers and magazines, whereas television advertising is controlled by the IMB ministry and depends on the minister that you have and the bureaucrat that you have that side.
Right.
Some have been more pragmatic than others. So this is a continuous dialogue because people change and policies are not written in stone. They change and they come back, and then you have a time when you have people who just want a blanket ban on everything. Again, in the states, you're dealing with 32 states. Again, you have responsive states. So this is a continuous thing, and I think it will continue the way the federal structure that we have in India. It's going to be a continuous process, and therefore the ISWAI, which is the International Wine and Spirits Association, we have dialogue with states and the IMB ministry on a continuous basis to try and see that things continue in a pragmatic way, in a practical way, because we don't want people to abuse alcohol.
Right.
We're the last people who want that.
Right.
There's enough business and we don't need people to drink and misbehave.
Now the premium imported spirits segment, like you mentioned, grows at a compounded annual growth rate of about 29% in this country. Is that great news? Do you think going forward we will be able to up that figure around?
Right now, the imported spirits is a very small fraction of the entire alcohol sector. And therefore, the scope for growth is tremendous. The per capita income of the country is growing by leaps and bounds. It's going to become more affordable to people as the years go on. The two things, one is the increased per capita income, and the second is a reduction in taxation. If both happen, I think this growth will continue. 29% is not a joke. I mean, 29% is year on year for the last few years on a consistent basis is big growth, whatever your base figures are. And if this continues over time, I think imported spirits will gain their real place in the Indian alcoholic beverage industry. So I expect this to continue to grow. But at the moment, the profitability of the industry in India is, for the size of the industry, it's the second largest whiskey market in the world. It's one of the largest spirits markets in the world. But if you look at the profitability, it's the lowest in the world by far. Right?
Now, mergers and acquisitions seem to be the buzzword in this industry. You saw the USL and Diageo, you saw the joint venture between Remy Martin and Sula as well. If you had to buy one Indian company, which one would it be?
Well, there aren't a whole lot. If you look at it, the whole Indian industry had been dominated, spirits industry was dominated by USL, right? USL had over half the market. Other players are much smaller than USL.
Right.
If you take the second largest player, it's not even a national player. There are certain markets they're strong in certain markets they're not. If you take the third, they only dominate the north and south. So there isn't any other national player really that you can buy and say, hey, I buy this player and I become part of, I have distribution in all of India.
Right.
It's not easy to determine, but if you want to have a quantum jump, you want to get onto one of the Indian companies. As a company, Brown-Forman continues to look at opportunities to increase its presence in the country. And at the right time, we will make the right move.
You know, now there has been an estimate by KPMG India where they've said that the Indian market is projected to grow at a growth rate of 10% in the next 5 years, which is much larger than Europe, US and China combined. So is that an exciting news for you, for players like you?
It's fantastic news, actually. But that's something that we don't have to know from KPMG. We know that anyway. The fact is that a growth rate of 10% for the industry is a broad generalization. But if you look at the different segments of the industry, whether it's the premium end or even the mid-priced end, they're growing much faster than the low-end whiskies and spirits. That is even more exciting for us because we kind of specialize in the premium end and also the mid-priced end. Also, it's different for different companies within the industry, the international companies. For example, if you take the Scotch industry, they are fairly saturated in the developed world because they've been marketing Scotch in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, in America for over 75 years. Whereas if you look at companies from America, they even came into Europe in the late 70s.
Right.
So we've still got a huge market. Russia's on fire for us. It's not on fire for Scotch. Eastern Europe is on fire for us. Asia Pacific is on fire for us. Even the parts of the developed market are not saturated for us. We are concentrating. We have the developing world and the developed world to feed and grow our business in. So it's extremely exciting. India, I mean, because of the young population, makes it even more exciting. Because you can work with people's taste profiles, you can work on their what they will like in the future if you present your products properly in the right light. So it's a very creative exercise and a very interesting exercise, a very exciting exercise because this whole size of the pie is going to increase exponentially in the next few years. Fantastic opportunity.
All right, on that note, time now for us to take a quick break right here on Tea Time. On the other side of this break, we will still continue discussing about the Indian alcohol sector and, of course, Brown-Forman Corporation with none other than Amrit Singh. That's a lovely one, Amrit. Welcome back to Tea Time. We're in conversation with Amrit Singh of Brown-Forman Corporation. Now, we were talking about Brown-Forman Corporation's brands existing in India. We spoke about Jack Daniel and what you all did to Jack Daniel to get it to the stage where it is in the country. Then, of course, the other one, of course, is Finlandia.
We bought into Finlandia about 7 years. Brown-Forman bought Finlandia 7 years ago from the Finnish government. And the Finnish government has the best distilling technology in the world. Their distillation columns and towers, most of the leading alcoholic beverage manufacturers use a company, Primalco's distilling towers. So they have the best distilling technology, and they made vodka using that distilling technology, using the melting glaciers, water from the melting glaciers, believing that they made the best vodka in the world, and called it Finlandia, which means pride of Finland. They didn't have the money to market the brand. So Brown-Forman stepped in and bought the brand, and we said this is a great brand because the water is probably the purest form of natural water on earth. Melting glaciers in Lapland where there's nobody for miles. We don't even filter the water because we believe that filtering the water may add impurities. And we've started marketing it pretty seriously in India for the last 5 years, and the response from the Indian consumer has been great. We don't believe that you've got to have 50 brands to be a huge company. We take each brand and make them substantial.
Now, which is the next brand from your portfolio that we will see making its passage into India?
This year more, you're going to see